I don't know who needs to hear this, but sometimes the most productive thing you can do is nothing. But how do you know when you need to rest and when you're just procrastinating? Today we'll talk about creative rest, how to recharge without the guilt, and create your rest protocol. The one thing that's helpful to know here is that rest isn't lazy, it's strategic, especially for artists. Writing a screenplay is a marathon. Sometimes it's a sprint, and sometimes it feels like you're sprinting a marathon. And that can get tiring, creatively tiring. So what we need to know as writers is when our creative energy is completely depleted and how to refill it so that we can get back to what we love, writing our script. You can't pour from an empty cup. We can't treat ourselves like content machines and keep writing until we have nothing left to give and we hate doing it. So the first thing to think about is what charges your creative battery. And these aren't just like things you do when you're mindlessly resting. We want to think about things that are actually restorative and kind of level you out creatively. You can consult the list that we made a few days ago about what you do to help you feel creative. This could be consuming art in any medium, natural environments, physical movement like walking or dancing or hiking. In true Pisces fashion, I love the ocean. It can be social connections like having quality time with your friends and family, or meeting new people. It could be solitude. It also could be having a creative outlet outside of writing, like watercolor, sketching, ceramics, pottery throwing, anything. Especially after our screen time went up so much in the pandemic, I looked for creative outlets that didn't involve screens, because we're also writing on top of day jobs, shift work, other life obligations. It's important to realize that the rest that we need may not just be creative. There may be other things that are burning us out that is adversely affecting our writing, but creativity isn't the root cause of the burnout. So just to quickly go over a few of the different types of rest, there's physical rest, which obviously is sleeping, sitting, being still. This can also include gentle movement like stretching, things that are restorative to your body. Mental rest, this is when we just need to turn our brain off and not think too hard. So doing mindless activities that require very, very little mental stimulation or actual decision making or any sort of thought process. Sensory rest, which is any sort of reduction in stimulation. So making sure your environment is quiet, maybe darkening the room, general calm atmosphere. Creative rest, which is consuming without creation or creating for the purpose of play and not productivity. Emotional rest, which it can involve therapy, your feelings and emotions, journaling, crying, etc. Social rest, which is different for everybody. So for introverts, this might mean you need time alone, and for extroverts, it might mean that you need time with other people. I think the last one is spiritual rest, which is anything that kind of feeds your soul, which could be art. It could be art or music or nature, or your faith and religion, whatever kind of fills that bucket for you. So just remember that you may need multiple types of rest at once, depending on the root cause of it or what's going on in your life. So it's always helpful to think of our holistic situation when approaching creative rest, rather than exclusively just thinking about things related to our project. And I think it's helpful to know kind of the warning signs for burnout, especially creative burnout. And I think the telltale sign to think about when it comes to writing is whether or not you feel inspired or excited about the project. If you're dreading writing the project, if it's no longer like fueling you, if it makes you feel awful, then you need to take some time away from it, right? You feel obligated to write it instead of excited to write it. We're not curing cancer, you guys. Take a break. And I say that because sometimes knowing when to stop and take a break is the exact thing that'll give you a breakthrough on your project. So sometimes the answer is taking a step away from your project and going out and living your life for a little bit to then be able to take that experience back with you into your project. So the next thing to consider is, what do we do when we feel blocked or burnt out? If it's burnout, we're gonna wanna reach into that well that we just brainstormed earlier of non-writing activities or creative rest activities that you can do. If you're feeling blocked, you can also pull from that same list, or there are a few other things you can do. So very short-term solutions would be to change up your environment. If you're in your office, go outside. If you're outside, go to a coffee shop, etc. Do some generative writing exercises. These can be based off of the characters or premise in your story, but taking it in a completely different direction. That can kind of just untwist your brain a little bit and let you think outside the box. If you're a person that juggles multiple projects at the same time, you can always temporarily switch to a different thing. I personally do this because I like having a few options so that if I feel really stuck on one thing, I can go feel productive in another and get myself a quick win. And usually with that motivation, I could come back to the project I was stuck on. But everybody's different. If you'd like to focus on one thing at a time, that's totally fine too. There's the obvious talk your block through with somebody else, right? It can be somebody that knows things about screenwriting or not. If you have a writer's group, you can talk your issues through with them. In SBA, we have an Ask a Writer page where you can post these issues if you have them, and see who in the community can come to your rescue. Or you can just talk to like your mom or your pet. Sometimes just talking things out loud really helps. And then the last two are actually from the Artist Way. If you took Nikki's workshop, you probably know what these two things are, which are morning pages and artist dates. Morning pages don't exclusively have to be for the morning. You can do them at any time, and oftentimes if you're blocked, pulling out your notebook and being able to do a few pages can often help unravel the block that you're currently having, or at least help you find the source of it. And artist dates are a great way to get a dose of inspiration when you need it. So we're gonna create a refuel menu. This is what you're going to reach to when you feel creatively blocked or burnt out. And we're gonna kind of break it up into a few sections. If you picture your creativity as like a fuel tank, basically we're gonna go based on levels. So if you're running low on your creativity, we're gonna want activities that are short-term quick fixes. So make a list of 3 to 5 rechargers that you can do that take anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes to a few hours. When you're completely depleted, gas alert is on, and the tank is on empty, we're gonna want some more serious help. So make a list of 2 to 3 things that you can do for an entire afternoon, an entire day, or a few days. Then when you're burnt out, the check engine light is on, and you cannot drive the car anymore, you need to take a break. So make a list of things that you can do over the course of a week or a few weeks that can be restorative and for the purpose of self-care and really taking care of yourself before you even think about jumping back into your project. And then we want a list of our non-negotiables. So because we always want to have creative fuel in the tank, we want to make sure we're including a few of our creative rechargers in our weekly routine so that we always have that small burst of inspiration and creative rest throughout our week. So when we make our writing plans in phase 3, we also want to include a little bit of time for these things that really light us up, where we can consume instead of create, and make sure that we have the creative fuel in our tank to keep going. So if you're in StoryBrand Academy's community, you can go ahead and fill out this section of the worksheet. If you're not, you can still make a list of this and make sure to keep this somewhere accessible for you for whenever your creative tank is on empty. In the comments below, I'd love if you comment at least one thing that you'd like to do when you're creatively resting, and I will see you tomorrow when we start phase 3.